Welcome to 8 Nights of Kvetching Night 7.
Hello, and welcome to night 7 of our 8 Nights of Kvetching. We have a lot of candles burning and also a lot of anger burning with them. If you are new to these, this is if you are new to our 8 Nights of Kvetching, my name is Jessica, and I am joined by fellow Dead Dreams Club member Anju Meredith. We are doing the ancient art of kvetching, which is the, joining together to air grievances, to complain, to share those things that upset us, annoy us, make things just a little bit difficult, and kind of join together to discuss those things and also maybe try to find some solutions to those things. So tonight on night 7, we are talking about the kind of whataboutisms, the zero-sum game that is sometimes enforced in our institutions around activism. And so what we really want to talk about here is doing better, not necessarily, trying to be perfect. But let me just dive in, because this is a major kvetch for me, and a lot of people who have talked with me about museums have probably heard this before. But one of the things that really gets my goat, I suppose, as they say, that really kind of burns deep inside is this idea of not wanting to try to be better, because people are upholding this idea that if we admit we did something wrong, if we admit that we did this in the past, that we're opening ourselves up to the public or to people or to criticism for what we will do in the future. If we start putting up Spanish translations of exhibition text on this one gallery wall, people might ask why we don't have every language in the world available to them on everything else. If we put alt text captions on our social media posts, people might ask us why we don't have that on our website. And it's this idea of kind of doing the what if to just enforce bad behaviors, outdated behaviors, to really hide behind these perceived something could be called out, instead of recognizing people should be calling us out for those things, and they're fair game. It is fair to say if your website isn't accessible, if your space isn't accessible, that people might criticize you for that. But you can't let that stop you from wanting to be better and trying to be better. It's this idea of if we can't be perfect, we should just stick to what we're doing because no one's really complained about it yet, instead of acknowledging we're just going to try to be a little bit better every day and learn from those critiques as they come in. And so I think this was one of my major kvetches for our 8 nights. I really want to hear what you think about this as well, Meredith, we're in very different positions, and I guess not positions. We both kind of work on the tech side, but I'm in much more of the nonprofit space now. And I think you're kind of more in that art museum space. And I'm wondering if this pops up there as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things that I see a lot with this is definitely the whataboutisms. If we do this, then what about that? Or, which is very frustrating to me, but because also the whataboutisms tend to come from people who uphold more of the power, right? So if it's somebody saying we need to make sure that, this is intersectional, and somebody else is like, but what about, and then they name a white woman artist who's gotten a lot of cred already, and we're like, okay, that's great. No, this doesn't negate her identity, but there is that invisible two, comma two tacked on, right? So first and foremost, it doesn't negate the others that need attention, but it is here to sort of, maybe pull out artists that have been, historically overlooked. So that is something that happens a lot, is like there tends to be a lot of whataboutisms in terms of representation.
The thing I think that people have been missing is that currently the times I have seen museums in popular culture in the last year have all been people calling museums out for the current bad behavior. So if you think of, I think John Oliver on the Tonight, or is it the Tonight Show? I don't know what it's called. But his show on like HBO Max, he had brought up this whole thing about museums being like fairly problematic for having, stolen objects from various cultures in, for the most part, let's just say the global South, and then bringing them up to, white European American countries and displaying them out of context, refusing to return them. It's a very colonialist issue that we've, discussed in other kveCHs and in other DDC content. But I think those are the things I try to use, and I think can probably maybe be a part of the solution, is I try and use those when I'm trying to bring up the need to do better in institutions. Is like right now, the story for museums within popular culture isn't a great one. Like we don't have a great reputation right now. The public, I think, is starting to question a lot of these things. A lot of what you're hearing in the news, if you watch our episode 2 of Dead Dreams Club Live, we do mention it as well, but I want to throw in a little bit of a trigger warning here for it, is the discussion of ancestors and Indigenous people being found in institutions in the US and Canada. And those kinds of things are kind of permeating the news, along with this colonialism of taking objects out of countries and putting them out of context into museums in kind of the global north. And so like these are the major conversations happening about museums right now. So I think that idea of people are going to call us out for bad behavior is already happening. So when you see museums stepping up to do things better, so I'm thinking of the Cooper Hewitt or Yale University. They have other issues, but they've stepped up recently to try and lead the forefront of things like alt text, or making their websites accessible, tackling how to describe people in images, to be very cognizant of how are we describing gender, how are we describing family relationships, how are we describing race and color and the way people look, disabilities, and starting to bring that into the forefront of the discussion, I think is something that a lot of institutions don't want to do, because maybe in 5 years we'll realize we didn't do it right again. Like we know we described people poorly. We know there's racist language. We know there's sexist language. We know there is pretty much every ist language there can be in our collections documentation. And instead of saying, let's tackle that and try and make it better, a lot of people kind of are falling on this idea of like, well, no one has really pointed it out yet, so let's not be the ones to raise it, when I think it actually can imbue a lot more trust in your institution if you are the one coming forward and saying, we want to tackle the fact that we know we haven't been an inclusive space for everyone because of these actions. So we want to do better. And I think one of my major solutions, because this is Dead Dreams Club, so we like to throw solutions in the mix. One of my major solutions is really becoming community centered. Like, how are you involving your community? How are you involving the people whose objects you hold, whose stories you hold, but also who you're trying to target and share with? How do you involve them in these conversations, whether that's looking at some of the work to do participatory experiences, or really looking at how do you transfer that authority away from maybe mostly white graduate school and doctoral, holding staff members, to including the people in your communities that really could be a part of this, whether that's having partnerships with community-centered organizations and letting them really set the standard, instead of, just having it be a checkbox that you ran it by them and didn't really take any of their advice. So I think those are kind of the things, as Meredith aptly pointed out, we know that museums aren't neutral, but so does the public now. And I think that's something in 2022, it's only going to keep being a larger part of the conversation. So really getting down to the work of doing better at this point and not letting the kind of white supremacist ideals of perfection keep us from trying to do things better is just kind of my major takeaway for night 7.
I would add to that, if you're in the pursuit of doing things better, think about things like your hiring practices. As Jessica was pointing out, think about whose voices you're centering, and don't do it as a pro forma, do it as a practice. Think about why they might not be centered right now. Are you not attracting the people whose voices you want to center? And if so, why not? Again, make room, make space, be vulnerable. And then also last, when Jessica's talking about community, also that your very first community, the people that are going to be interpreting your material within your museum, whether it's artwork, whether it's a scientific exhibition, is going to be your staff. Those are going to be the people that are choosing the language, choosing the labels, choosing the artwork or the objects, and juxtaposing them in communication, either physically or virtually, to the people that are going to show up, again, either physically or virtually. So think about whose voices those are when they are making those juxtapositions, and don't treat basically diversity as a checkbox.
So wrapping that up, we hope you've enjoyed night 7. Please go enjoy some, jelly donuts, some safganiyat. Let's have a good time, and we'll see you back tomorrow for our last night of the 8 nights of kvetching.